That's a considerable amount. How do you assess how this failure will impact the Kremlin? What will be the moral component for them?
For me, this is a certain grain, a very significant grain in our overall cause of victory. Why? Because it shows that the efforts, knowledge, and skills of our special services are growing, while for our enemies, they are simply catastrophic. They are falling and dissolving into oblivion. Therefore, in this case, I congratulate all the employees of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine on such an absolutely stunning victory on their section of the front. And that's why I say to them, guys, thank you very much.
Absolutely. And what do you think? Why is it that this is the fact that Putin messed up? Basically, he tried to lie to the United States of America, as everyone has already laughed about. Yes, that drone the size of a house. Who edited this? Once again? All right, he makes this statement. So does this mean that there is no air defense in the Russian Federation? They've moved it all to the front. They have huge problems there. Not even Putin's residence is being protected. They probably don't even know that in the armed forces of Ukraine, you can shoot down these drones with an assault rifle. Drones that the Russian Federation is launching by the thousands, by the hundreds, at peaceful Ukrainian cities. What does this say?
This shows that there is total degradation from the very top down to the security services when the president, supposedly of a once great country like Russia, stoops to outright lying to his counterpart, telling him that he has an amazing relationship with Mr. Trump. He just blatantly lies to him, spouting all sorts of nonsense just to somehow influence the negotiation process between Ukraine, the United States, and this Russian Federation. So in this regard, it's complete degradation, intellectual degradation, professional degradation, and, as we all perfectly understand, the economic degradation of a country that for some reason has always been called great.
It's very interesting that at first Trump believed it. Yes, he did. Later, the information was verified. It's great that Ukrainian diplomacy did its job. They immediately contacted the American negotiation team and reported that it was a fake, yet another Russian fake. At first, Trump believed it, but then he didn't acknowledge it. Of course, he acted as if, well, yes, Putin lied, I fell for it, but he wouldn't have done that. He simply reposted material that criticized the dictator from exactly this perspective
of view, but that's already quite a lot. It means a lot.
For Trump,
it's just
rude. In your opinion, will this affect Trump's attitude toward Putin? Lately, it's been somewhat positive, if that's the right way to put it. How will it affect him?
Well, it's not just lately. Let's remember how Russians rejoiced at both Donald Trump's first victory and especially the second one. They said, here comes our American president. Now everything will be amazing, wonderful for us. Undoubtedly, there is probably something in this story that we don't know. Why Donald Trump has such a relationship with the Russian Federation, maybe we'll find out someday, but never mind him. We need to live in the present and solve the problems that exist today. So in this regard, I support you 1,000,000,000% that Ukrainian diplomacy acted quickly and decisively. They explained, showed, and proved everything. And as for the rest, well, Putin screwed up. Putin screwed up big time. For some reason, he thinks that everyone will believe his tall tales. He can't find any authority anymore. He has no tools left to influence Trump, the European community, or Ukraine as a whole. So that's why we see these kinds of fakes, these kinds of things. These stories are made up on the fly, and they don't even bother to give them at least some minimal legitimacy. So in this regard, yes, Putin screwed up completely. If I weren't on your show, I'd use a different word than screwed up. I think everyone understands what I mean. So in this respect, we understand perfectly well. The victory of Ukrainian diplomacy and the victory of Ukrainian special services, which we've just discussed, and the degradation of the Russian side from the top of the government down to all their diplomatic and various special agencies.
But still, how will Trump react? Let's imagine that he's very angry, that he was outsmarted, made to look like a fool in front of the whole world. And so if suddenly, yes, that's how it is, what kind of reaction? Specifically in actions, what kind of rhetoric will we see? What kind of change might we see? Just speculating, but what if?
Let's imagine together with you then as a sort of bedtime story. Look, in reality, we clearly understand that Donald Trump is quite an impulsive person. In the morning, he says one thing. By lunchtime, his opinion has already shifted a bit. Then he says things that are fundamentally different. when there was a press conference at Mar-a-Lago about the president of Ukraine and the president of the United States, when Mr. Trump started saying that Putin wants some kind of economic prosperity for Ukraine or something like that, how he plans to sell electricity cheaply. We all remember the expression on our president's face. Even Volodymyr Alexandrovich was surprised by such things. So, in this regard, I believe that we have already studied quite well who Donald Trump is, his behavior, his tendencies, and to expect that if he feels offended, he must punish someone or take some kind of action? I don't think so. After all, he's an older man on the one hand, a person with a certain psycho-emotional makeup, let's put it that way, and on the other hand, he's a businessman. He doesn't focus on being offended or anything like that. For him, the main thing is the result. To end yet another war, to count the 8th, 9th, 10th war in this world. Well, at the very least, the biggest war since World War II, that's for sure. To clearly pin the star of a world hero on his lapel for ending this war and to receive the Nobel Prize. And in this way, achieve one result or another. That's why, in this regard, Trump understands absolutely clearly that Putin is constantly deceiving him, juggling facts whenever possible, whether it's economic figures or political, some kind of consistencies. Therefore, in this respect, I still believe that even the fact that the American president took and shared this post already says a lot. He can't admit that he was fooled, that Putin simply deceived him, but at least he can show it indirectly like this. The fact that he knows about it, he understands it, and he realizes it, this already means a lot for Trump. It really does.
Here's what's interesting. You mentioned that Trump wants to end yet another war, to become a peacemaker, to win the Nobel Peace Prize, right? Well, Ukraine needs help, right? Just impose sanctions on Russia, help Ukraine, and yes, if he ends this war, he'll get the Nobel Prize. All of us, European partners, Ukraine, will hand out 1 million of those prizes. Here's something else interesting. We don't have much time to discuss it. The Russian Federation is, in this way, trying to push partners away from Ukraine. But what we actually see every single time is already 100% clear. You know how they say lightning never strikes the same place twice? Well, here it's struck 155 times. We see that partners continue to help Ukraine even more strongly. Even this time we see that European partners who have long been in contact with Ukraine are helping a lot. They condemned these Russian actions and called on those countries that unfortunately fell for this fake to verify the information more thoroughly. From this perspective, what do you think? Why doesn't Russia realize that if their actions have the exact opposite effect, maybe it's time to stop?
You know, they've just gotten used to certain patterns of behavior, and they don't know any other way. They've been taught like this. I'll say it honestly in Ukrainian, as my grandmother used to say, what the pot has boiled over with, that's what it will keep bubbling with. And this pot already has so much build-up that it's impossible to change anything anymore. That is, they will act exactly the same way they've gotten used to, the way it's ingrained in them, and even after making the same mistakes 1,000 or 10,000 times, they'll still act the same way. Let's be honest. It's the end of the 4th year of the war, and they still haven't understood who Ukrainians are. They haven't understood that we will fight until victory. Because this is our country, we are defending our interests, and we are protecting our lives, the lives of our parents and our children. And this is something Putin and his circle will never understand. And the more they strike our station, our energy system, the stronger we become. And it only makes us angrier and more determined in our actions. And we will do everything to ensure that victory is ours.
You know, you mentioned that nothing can happen in Russia. But let's remember Iran, for example, where peaceful protests against the current government have now begun. So why can't people in Russia do the same? There's a total dictatorship there too. It seemed absolutely impossible to do anything. But people went out into the streets anyway. Yes, there were repressions. Well, it's terrible, disgusting, and the whole world condemns it. I think that people will succeed. We literally have just 1 minute left. In your opinion, what could influence similar inspiring protest sentiments to arise in Russia as well?
You know, the mentality of Ukrainians and the mentality of Russians are fundamentally different after all. After all, among us Slavs, we are a more freedom-loving people. And for us, the right of an individual to say what they think is very important. That's why, yes, sometimes we do things that Russians don't understand. We go out to the Maidans, we stage revolutions, but we achieve our goals. Even if it's difficult, even if maybe we're not always going the right way, but we keep moving forward on this path. They're just afraid. God forbid something happens. So as soon as their mentality changes, then things will be different. But as it is, you see, in Iran, they shoot at crowds with machine guns, and still people keep pursuing their goals.